what Graham said he didn't intend to say, and he overstepped his line. And sometimes when you start talking, you just keep talking. I felt like that might have been the case. I don't think there was a bad bone in anyone's body with this. What I do think is it has now opened up a local story to a national story. And if you look at the numbers, the Eagles average 200 receiving yards from their wide receivers per game. It is, from what I believe, from what I was reading, it is the 30th in the league as far as rankings go. I might have to double check those numbers. Might be just 200 passing yards, but it's 30th in the league in passing, and it's a real story. And now there's this little personal stuff to it, which is what gets all these national shows and national talking heads, me included, salivating.
Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast, presented by Verizon. The NFL powered by Verizon 5G. I am your host, Dave Helman, and I'm here to tell you one more time, it's one of those weekends. Maybe it's been, we can admit this now. Maybe it's been a little sleepy for a week or two. Maybe the big time matchups have been few and far between since we got into December. It's one of those weekends, once again, that will not be the case. Do the Christmas shopping on Saturday. Do the familial obligations on Friday. Date night on Friday. That's fine, because you sure as hell don't want to be anywhere tonight. And Sunday is out of the question. Starts on Thursday. We got an NFC West grudge match, Rams 49ers to look forward to. Two teams trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. And then Sunday, it's just one of those days you dream about in the offseason. When you're desperate for football, you dream this stuff up. So many big games. We got Bills Lions. We got the Keystone matchup. Eagles Steelers in the late window in Philadelphia. Buccaneers Chargers out here on the West Coast. The nightcap is a huge one up in Seattle between the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. Everywhere you look, there are playoff stakes. There are huge odds. There are division titles on the line, all that good stuff. It's going to be happening every window. So Saturday, I don't know, whatever you got going on that's not parking in front of a TV, do that on Friday or Saturday, because it's going to be lit all day on Sunday. You've been warned. We got a lot to get to. We'll get into everything I just said, all the biggest matchups. We're going to cover every single one of them. Our buddy Peter Schrager stopped by the show, talk about all of this week's biggest matchup, what's at stake for all the best teams in the league.
All right, Peter, I love getting your perspective on this, man, because of your placement in the NFL industry. I mean, you've got to keep an eye on every storyline, and y'all, with the amount of airtime you have to fill on Good Morning Football, you've got to be very got to have good news judgment, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm curious for your take on what's happening in Philadelphia this week.
Picked off the A block on Good Morning Football 3 days in a row, baby.
There we go.
You better believe we leaned in. That's candy. I don't care if it's legit or not. It's candy. We've got a star wide receiver who might be upset, and then a defensive leader of 15 years who's no rube coming out and accidentally saying some stuff that, whether it was intended or not, creates a whole other level. This is a real story. I'm sorry, it is. And it went from being a local story that might have been picking up some heat to a national story overnight. And that's real, man. It is real.
You know what?
They have to answer the questions now. It's real.
I'm glad you framed it that way, because I'm doing research for the show. I'm looking around Twitter to make sure I'm not missing anything, to get the context. And I see people blaming the media for blowing this up into a thing, and I'm like, guys, your players are the ones saying this stuff. And it's one thing for AJ Brown to be frustrated after a game where the passing offense didn't really take off, but the Brandon Graham thing is pretty wild. And I know he came out and he said that he jumped to conclusions and he spoke too soon, but regardless, you can't blame anybody but guys in Eagles uniforms for this ballooning into this all-consuming topic that it is right now.
There was a Raiders undrafted rookie out of Air Force who took a shot at Mahomes over the summer and was like the puppet, and that became a thing. And then at the end of the day, it's like that guy's never going to see the field. That guy is a rookie out of Air Force who's just he made a dumb comment. And if Mahomes is actually upset and motivated by that, fine. Brandon Graham has been in the NFL for 15 years. He's played in two Super Bowls. He is a Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee year in, year out. And he is not one to misuse words. So when you see that, like it definitely raises your eyes. And Tim McManus, the reporter, did a good job breaking it all down, saying that, what Graham said, he didn't intend to say, and he overstepped his line. And sometimes when you start talking, you just keep talking. I felt like that might have been the case. I don't think there was a bad bone in anyone's body with this. What I do think is it has now opened up a local story to a national story. And if you look at the numbers, the Eagles average 200 receiving yards from their wide receivers per game. It is, from what I believe, from what I was reading, it is the 30th in the league as far as rankings go. I might have to double check those numbers. Might be just 200 passing yards, but it's 30th in the league in passing, and it's a real story. And now there's this little personal stuff to it, which is what gets all these national shows and national talking heads, me included, salivating.
Let's spin this forward because obviously the Eagles have a huge game. Steelers come to town on Sunday in the late window on Fox. Huge game. I saw Mike Tomlin called it like the Pennsylvania Classic or whatever. I love the idea of, these two huge fan bases representing the state. But what I'm curious about is the vibes in Philly have been so good for most of this 9-game win streak. But I think back to the win against Cleveland, and now I think to this win against Carolina, and both times that it was really, I guess you got to throw the Jacksonville game in there too. That got dicey too. But two of the three times that it's been close and dicey and nervy, this is what's happened after an Eagles game. Like after the Cleveland game, it was Nick Sirianni chirping at the fans. Now after this game, it's the players chirping at each other. Like this team hasn't felt as bad vibes as last year's team. But maybe that's just because they haven't been in these situations. Like it's weird how good the Eagles' record is and how close everything feels to dysfunction.
Dude, that's such a thin line. Last year they were 10-1 and they fired a defensive coordinator. And that doesn't happen in other cities. It doesn't happen in other markets. Now you can justify it a million ways. You could say that the defense was lacking. They got better once, Patricia took over, whatever it was. This year they're what are they right now? 11-2.
11
and the
2.
sky is falling because the passing game is not what it should be, and maybe Jalen and AJ aren't getting along. I think media market matters. I think fan bases matter, and the Eagles have such a high standard right now. When these things collide like this, even in a week where you're coming off a win or 9 straight wins or whatever it's been, it leads to dissection and it leads to a deeper dive. And when you have that many voices in that market as media, and I do not blame the media on this. This one seems self-imposed. It's not a media issue. They did not go searching for this. This was handed to them on a silver platter. It does become a bigger story. And now in comes Fox. They don't often do Steelers games. Here comes Brady and Burkhardt. They're going to do probably their first Steelers game. And I would imagine one of their first, maybe the second Eagles game they've done. And now they got to weigh in, and it's on the national broadcast and 45 million people are watching it. It's a story. We can't deny it. And the only way you can kind of overcome it is by either A, throwing the ball to AJ Brown and silencing everyone and having him go 8 for 120 with 2 touchdowns, or just continue to win the way you're winning and saying, we're going to block out the noise if we can do it this way. A loss, this only snowballs, unfortunately.
Do you put any credence into the idea? Like you talk about the market, obviously this is one of the most football crazy cities in the NFL, which is saying something. Such a passionate fan base. They were so close to winning a championship 2 years ago, and they were so dominant last year. Like I feel like the weight and the fear of this team not getting anything out of how good they've been, I just feel like it's got to weigh on the entire organization. I feel like it weighs on the city. Like I wonder,
Really? I feel like they got theirs. 2018, they got theirs.
They did win
not
that
with this
championship,
crew,
but
not with this crew, but like it's not the 1940 New York Rangers. It's not the Lions who haven't, done anything since 57, and it's not the Browns. Like I feel like it's a little different with the Eagles fans. I just feel like the standard is so high there because of this the dominant and excellence that they expect. But I don't feel like it's because they haven't won one. I think they wear that on their sleeves and they love the fact they won one the way they did as the underdogs.
That's fair. It is a little different when you've gotten a championship out of the way, but like if this roster doesn't come away with a title after what they've been through, that's going to be gross for everybody involved. I wonder how much that
If they
factors into these sorts of conversations.
uh, as- if they lose to Pittsburgh, and I don't think the Steelers have won there since 1965. That's the stat I saw today, which was eye-opening. If they lose to Pittsburgh, is it sky is falling, or is it okay? We still have a chance to be the number 2 seed. We still have a chance to potentially be the 1 seed. Like that's the key because they might lose to Pittsburgh on Sunday.
That's real quick before we move on. Like this is one of the matchups of the week. Like the way we're framing this, it makes it sound like the Steelers are an afterthought. I absolutely think they can win this game, although George Pickens and his hamstring injury makes me very nervous. I looked this up. Russell Wilson averaged less than 6 yards per attempt against Cleveland the other day, which was his second
Passing?
worst.
Yikes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know where the explosive plays are coming from for the Steelers if George Pickens isn't in there, or even if he is in there, honestly, the way the Steelers secondary has been playing. So I think that makes it tough, but I mean, we just saw the Steelers drag the Ravens down into the mud and play a game where neither team scored 20 points. So I absolutely think that's possible when you talk about this defense.
Yeah, and they're legit, man. Like that Steelers defense gets after you, and once they get going, it's contagious. Uh, they were down 9-0 against um I'm sorry, the Eagles were up. The Eagles were down 9-0 against the Ravens and were able to come back once Tucker makes that extra point. I don't know if you fall behind by 9 points against the Steelers with their defense, you can do that. Like their defense just they closed the door and they closed the fence. And it's like, all right, give us a little bit of a cushion. We're gonna take care of business. And if they get up 10-0 early, or they get up 7-0 early, or if they even get up 13-3, like I don't know with the way Philly's passing game is going on that defense that they can claw their way back.
If ever there was a week to not watch the ball, this is probably it. When you talk
Right?
about Lane Johnson, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Jordan Mailata, like two of the best fronts in the league going at each other. I cannot wait for that game. Late window Fox. All right, let's address this. Let's address this Bills elephant in the room because man, we got up here and just gave like the biggest, warmest hug to the Buffalo Bills last week. I was stumping for Sean McDermott, Coach of the Year,
Best
and
team ever, I said. Best Bills team ever.
I'm not jumping off the bandwagon, but that's the way this thing works in the NFL, man. I mean, just a I think when you get a game like that from Josh Allen, I think I have to call it a choke that you can't hold this Rams team to less than 40 points. I don't know. What do you make of where the Bills are? And do you worry as much as it felt like they had a shot at the 1 seed, and I know mathematically they still do, but it looks very difficult now. Do you worry about a hangover effect at all from having so much within your grasp and losing it like
No.
that?
I think the Rams are playing for a lot on Sunday and gave their best effort and beat the Bills. And even in a loss, the Bills showed that you do not want to face them in the playoffs. They can put up 42 points even in a loss, and they can throw the ball all over the yard. The defense, though, for the first time this season, and I felt the same way against the Ravens earlier this year, really left you scratching your head. They went 11 of 15 on third down. There were wild stats about Nakua and Cup and what they were able to do. The run game, it was dominant what the Rams did to the Bills, and that the Bills answered every single time. I'm not concerned about the Bills. I think they're going to be just fine. I think they very well might lose this game on Sunday, and I think they're going to be in the same place that they were before last Sunday, and they're not going to be, woe is me, all this stuff. I think they'll be just fine. And if they have to go to Kansas City and win a playoff game, they are fully equipped to do so, especially knowing that they have lost 2 home playoff games in the last 3 years. Like it's to me, roll the ball out and play at this point. You expect it to be Kansas City, Buffalo when it matters most, even though Pittsburgh's playing great. And if that's the case, let's play it in your building, our building, wherever. Might as well. Let's just duke it out. And I think that's just fine with the Bills.
You can make the argument that a Bills season hasn't started until they lose a game like that.
Or you can make the
Because
argument the Bills season doesn't even matter until they're in the playoffs.
Well, that's a really great point too. I mean, and that's the like going back to 21, they've been either the 2 seed or the 3 seed with 11, 12 wins, and that's just who they are. So like they're right in their lane. But man, I was just watching that game unfold, and when it was over, I was just curious because I was like, this feels like it happens to Buffalo every year. And then
Yeah.
I fell down the rabbit hole of insane Bills games that they've managed to lose, whether you want to talk about that Broncos game against Russ last year, the
Monday
Eagles
night.
overtime game,
Yep.
the Xavier Gibson walk-off happened last year, as long
Yep.
ago
Week
as
one
that
against the
feels.
Jets. I'll go even further. I remember, the Kyler Murray, Hail Murray, like they have lost in crazy ways over the last 4 years under Josh
I
Allen. They find
forgot about
ways.
the Hail Murray. I'm
Yeah,
too
dude.
busy thinking about the Vikings like fumble on the goal
Yes.
line after
Fourth and
they had clinched the
18.
game.
Yep.
It probably doesn't get any easier, but Bills fans at least have to feel like, hey, we've been here before and we've been okay. We'll probably be the 2 seed. It's going to be all right.
Like, I think, say you give the Chiefs the 1 seed, even though I'm not conceding that yet. Say the Chiefs get the 1 seed, and does it matter if it's at Buffalo or at Pittsburgh if those 2, 3 teams match up? I don't know. I still think the Ravens play a factor in this thing. It's fun to play it all out in your head, but until the Bills get in the playoffs, I don't think really all this regular season seeding stuff matters. I think they can win on the road. They're built for that.
The other side of this is obviously arguably the best team in the NFL. Did you, I mean, what did you, I hate to say learn about a
No,
team when we're
they do
13 weeks into
this.
the season?
They've won every single type of way. This is just a new way. We're gonna
Did it
bounce a
matter
kick
or
in.
impress you at all the way that they were able to like drag that thing
Yes.
across the finish line?
Yes. Yes. You didn't give that ball back to Herbert. Not everyone can do that. Everyone else has to do flips. Mahomes on 3rd and 7 gets it. Mahomes on 3rd and 10 gets it. And he bleeds the clock perfectly. It's one of the great underrated skills of these awesome quarterbacks to both manipulate the clock and make sure there's no time left for the other team and still convert all these third downs. It was a masterful final drive. It was not a great game. Again, masterful when it matters most. And then they have some sort of ability to win these games. I won't call it luck because they win them time and time again in the final minutes. Things go right for them.
Was it masterful the way that Dan Campbell kept the ball away from Jordan Love, or was that like a step too far for you?
See, I didn't like that in the moment, but I was wrong. They live and breathe that way. And we had Kirby Joseph on the Good Morning Football this morning, and he's like, "That's our coach. We love the way he does it. He's consistent. That's how we play. If he didn't do that, it wasn't going to feel the same way." It's so like to each his own. Like I just have seen teams get burned that way, and it's great in week 13. I don't know if I would love it in the playoff game. I don't know.
I can't help but think about that NFC title game against the
I know.
Niners. But Dan said the thing he wanted back was like kicking field goals early
I
on,
know. I know.
That just makes like what are we in for in the playoffs? Like if Dan Campbell's takeaway from the playoffs last year was don't back away from who we are. We're going to be aggressive no matter how high the stakes are. I can't wait to see what he's willing to trot out there in a do or die situation in the playoffs because clearly there's no limit. If you're willing to go for it on your own 30, and if you're willing to go for it in a situation where a kick probably wins you the game, when won't you do it? I
Yeah.
don't know. It's like Mean Girls, the limit does not exist.
There you go. It's really fun right now in the NFL because even in that Rams Bills game, McVay had a 4th and 5 and they were up 3. And in like 5 years ago, he's kicking the field goal or he's punting it, and instead it's let's go for it. And they throw to 2-2 Atwell, and like it's just what we do now. We go for it. It was funny. We had I don't know if you ever worked with him when you were in Dallas, Isaiah Standback,
Oh,
who
that's my guy. Yeah, I'm so pumped for Isaiah, man.
I'll,
When he
I'll,
got the
I'm
gig.
sorry, I didn't even know you guys. I assumed you did, but I didn't know if you guys were on the same team or network or just worked in the same press room. But Isaiah was on the Patriots team when
Yep.
Belichick famously went for it on 4th and 2 to Kevin Falk and came up short. And everyone, I remember the morning after that game, that was probably 07, 08, 09. It was like Belichick committed a sin of coaching going for it. Now that's like understood as the decision you make. You make it. You keep the ball out of Peyton Manning's hands. You try to go for it because he's going to score either way. And it's just amazing how far we've come. And the analytics help us, but also the fan tolerance for that kind of decision. It used to be unthinkable, but now it's like,
Yeah.
all right, we're used to it now. That's what they do. Coaches go for it.
I think media tolerance probably helps too, because now you have people that'll say, "Hey, here's why this
The
matters.
numbers.
Here's why
Yeah.
this would works." Where, yeah, back whatever year that was, yeah, oh 06, oh 07, I just like the columnists were like out for blood the next
No
day.
doubt.
It was absolutely incredible. Cannot wait to see between Dan Campbell and Sean McDermott. God knows what's going to happen in that
Wild
game.
game.
Late window, CBS. Let's wrap it up with the Sunday night game.
Yeah, fun one.
Dude, okay, there's a couple things I want to talk about here. First of all, have you seen the stat that's floating around this week?
No.
The NFC North
Oh
is
yeah,
28
28-3. Is that what it is?
against non-NFC North teams. Like, I knew that they were good, but it really opened my eyes to realize that even Green Bay, who's in third place, hasn't lost to a non-division team since that opener in Brazil against Philly. That was the last time they lost to somebody other than the Vikings or
That's
Lions.
crazy. Great stat. Two teams that are very much in the playoff hunt, very much factors. They would be the 3 and the 6 seeds right now, the Packers and the Seahawks, and yet get zero chat or buzz anywhere. And I think one of these two teams, whoever wins this game, we're going to come out Monday morning and be like, should we be talking more about X? Because if the Seahawks win, they're now sitting there at 9-5 and they control their own destiny, and their place to their home field is very tough to win. And then if the Packers win, they're 10-4 and they beat just about everybody but the Vikings and of course the Eagles and of course the Lions. And it's like they'll get their revenge in the playoffs. So I'm not making a prediction on this one. I think it's quietly a very good game. I also think Colts Broncos is quietly a very good game. That final AFC playoff spot could be at hand. So like really good week that is going to be covered by the national outlets primarily for two games, Steelers, Eagles, and Bills, Lions. But I think these other two games are really good too.
Colts Broncos, like the winner has something like a 40-point probability
Totally.
swing.
It's really interesting.
Anthony Richardson's first like do or die kind of moment as a quarterback. Bo Nix's as well, obviously, because he's a rookie. I'm not gonna call a shot here, but I just wanted to say for the record, I'm pretty shocked at the spread in this Packer-Seahawk game. Green Bay is a 3-point road favorite,
Yeah,
which
there's not a lot of respect for Seattle out there. I think people roll their eyes about them because of the way they lost some of those games. The Rams game, they lost another one earlier that was head scratching. I don't think there's any respect for Seattle. I get it.
I rolled my eyes at Seattle when they were winning early in the season because it was just Geno making 60 plays a week. But
Yeah.
defense is coming along, man. The running game showed up against Arizona. This is not the same team that we saw in like October where Jared Goff didn't throw an incompletion. Like it's not the same team.
If you're gonna clip something for social, here's your clip right now. The Seahawks have a rookie linebacker, Tyrese Knight, who has started just a bunch of games only since week 10. They're like 6-1 when he plays 10 snaps or more. He wears number 48. Not a Mike McDonald is a former linebackers coach. This guy's a linebacker. When he plays, you cannot miss him. Number 48, Tyrese Knight, a rookie. And I think he's a real difference maker. And it's another one of John Schneider's gems. And watch, you're going to watch Sunday night against the Packers. Tyrese Knight, number 48 in the Seahawks, is going to make some game-saving tackle. And we're going to be like, oh, maybe the Seahawks are really good and really young and have all these guys that we don't know yet because we haven't been talking about them.
One more thing I want to point out, I'll just keep my Seahawks pom-poms out here. They haven't won double-digit games since 2020, and that was obviously the COVID year where everything was strange and fans weren't in stadiums. First time they've been this good, probably with a home game this good since at least like 2019. And I feel like Lumen Field is gonna be rocking on Sunday
Right?
night.
Don't you
in a
feel
way.
like a lot of weird, like the Giants went there and won this year?
Yeah.
Like weird things have happened in that stadium. It doesn't scare you like the 12s. I feel like they got some of that juice back recently.
Yeah, get some of that Legion of Boom juice back. Peter Schrager, always love talking to you, man. Catch up with you soon.
As we move into the next segment of the show, I'll be a little bit blunt with you. It is a huge week. There are huge matchups all over the NFL. To be honest, a lot of them are later on in the day. As you look through the schedule, when you catch the early window, you're going to see some uninspiring matchups for the early slate of games in week 15. You got a lot of good teams playing bad teams, got a lot of bad teams playing bad teams. We got at least one game between teams that have been mathematically eliminated, Jets, Jaguars. Not going to try to oversell that too much, but if you're looking for storylines in the early window, first of all, Dolphins, Texans is worth a mention. Two teams fighting for playoff positioning in the AFC. But over in the NFC, don't sleep on Washington going to New Orleans, the Commanders fresh off of their week 14 bye week, 14 grueling weeks of the season, plus training camp before they finally get a week off. And now we get our first look at a fresher Commanders team on the road. A big spot for them. It really is a big road game for them. That is why this is our On the Road segment. It's On the Road presented by Honda. Dreams are unstoppable. The Commanders were unstoppable. Not to say they can't be again, but they were unstoppable. They start the season 0-1. They go on a 7-1 tear from there. Obviously, they were the story of the early going of the season. Jayden Daniels, runaway freight train of a Rookie of the Year campaign. Dan Quinn is already writing his acceptance speech for Coach of the Year. And all of that stuff can still happen, but it's a lot less certain than it was, let's say, at Halloween. Because since that 7-2 start, the Commanders are just 2-3. They've gotten beat up. Jayden was dealing with the rib injury. They lost a couple games. 2-3 since November started. And now they sit still having a fantastic season, 8-5, not trying to diminish what they've accomplished to this point. But it starts to get dicey if you can't win a road game against a New Orleans Saints team that's dealing with a quarterback injury. Washington favored by 7.5 points in this game, due in large part to Derek Carr's fractured hand that he suffered against the New York Giants. This would be an even juicier matchup. Saints record is not good, but if Derek Carr was healthy for this game, Saints still mathematically alive for the NFC playoffs, I could sell you a little bit more. I do think it takes a hit without Derek Carr, but I still think this is an interesting spot for Washington. How do they respond to the week off? How do they respond to their up and down play here over the last month or so? I want to see what Jayden Daniels looks like. I want to see what this running game looks like and how the defense responds to getting a week off, because this is a game the Commanders should handle with ease. Sounds like the Saints are currently splitting reps between Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler, their two backup quarterbacks. Rattler started and lost 3 games the first time Carr was hurt this year. Haener hasn't played as much this season. See what Darren Rizzi wants to do there. This is about Washington for me, because if we're for real about Washington, they should win this game easily. If they do, it's not a mathematic lock, but a virtual lock that they make the playoffs. If you lose, Washington, 8-6, you're opening the door for the LA Rams. You're opening the door for the Falcons and the Cardinals, maybe even the San Francisco 49ers. Things start to get nervy if you manage to lose this game. Washington hasn't won consecutive games in December since 2020, which was the last time they made the playoffs. That weird COVID year, Taylor Heineke almost beat Tom Brady despite the Commanders having a losing record. That was the last time they strung together wins in December. So even if this isn't the juiciest game on the schedule, it's an important one for me and for the Washington Commanders. I've got my eye on it. Up next, it is a big weekend for both of the LA franchises in the NFL. Rams and 49ers playing a Thursday night. Feels like an NFC West elimination game. Not quite mathematically, but vibe-wise, feels like the winner of this game stays alive in the division race while the loser takes a huge hit in the playoff odds. Also, Sunday afternoon, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming out here to face the LA Chargers in a big cross-conference game. We'll start with the Thursday night one because it's coming up. It's tonight. Let's bring in our friend Eric Williams to talk about both of these matchups, starting with this Rams-Niners rivalry. Eric, I'm going to start with the 49ers, and I'm going to keep it real broad because was I surprised San Francisco beat Chicago? No. I was a little bit surprised to see them absolutely dismantle the Bears the way that they did. Do you think that is more to do with how bad it is in Chicago right now, or did we catch a glimpse of what the 49ers might be capable of here in the last month of the season?
I think I'll go with 75% bad Chicago, 25%
Just leaving
49ers won
just
the
enough
opening.
chance, leaving just enough chance for the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a glimpse of kind of what we expected all year from the 49ers in terms of how their offense looked, Purdy playing as well as he did, from the quarterback position. And then defensively, 7 sacks. I mean, that's the best their defense has looked all year. And they did it without Nick Bosa. Leonard Floyd is kind of emerged as their main sack guy. He has 8.5 sacks on the year, moving towards another double digit sack performance in terms of the season. And so, when you watch them play offense, defense, special teams, it was just kind of what we expected to see from the jump. And so now on a short week, can they do it again against their, division rival in a game that they need in order to kind of stay in this playoff conversation?
Doesn't seem like the injury gods are being overly nice to them this week either. Trent Williams is already ruled out for this game. Bosa still questionable after missing last week. Dre Greenlaw at least has a chance to make his debut after the Super Bowl Achilles injury, but with everything else going on, I mean, you got to wonder if that's enough. On top of that, I can't get over the comedy of a major storyline being the availability of the third running back in Isaac Guerrero. I mean, it looked like he was going to break out and save the rest of this season, and now we don't know if he might be available. I mean, is this the Patrick Taylor and Izzy Abanaconda show? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, Guerrero's going to be a game time decision. Was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday, so there's a chance that he can get out there on Thursday and play. He was, effective last week. But, with Shanahan's offense, it seems like anybody they stick back there is going to be productive from the running back position. So whether it's Taylor or Guerrero, you would have to think that they're going to be able to run the ball effectively enough. I think for me, the story from my perspective going into is what's going to happen with Debo. Debo traditionally plays well against the Rams. He has nearly 800 scrimmage yards, 7 touchdowns against that team. In his last 4 games, he has just 97 scrimmage yards. And he was squawking a little bit on social media saying that, he'd like to get more touches, which is understandable. Juwan Jennings has kind of emerged as the number one, target for Purdy in terms of the receiver position with Ayuk done for the year. Debo hasn't been involved that much in the offense. Maybe this is a game where Shanahan, tries to feed him and uses that energy to try to beat, the division rival in the Rams. And oh, by the way, Shanahan is 10-6 against McVay.
This is a question for after the Niners season is over, whenever that is. Maybe it's next week or maybe it's in January sometime. But Debo, you alluded to it. He's tweeting afterward that he's frustrated. He wants the ball more often. It's been a month since he had more than 22 receiving yards in a game. When you think about the future with Brock Purdy, the money that the 49ers might have to sign him for, the cap for a team with this many veterans, I mean, this feels like an offseason where we're going to be having uncomfortable conversations about Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, no doubt. Debo is one of those players that they kind of have to take a close look at in terms of his age, his production, and what he means to that offense moving forward. I think Trent Williams is another guy. He's out this week. He's been injured for most of the year. Obviously, he's one of the best left tackles when healthy, but he's 36 years old. You have to kind of start figuring out that left tackle position. You're probably not going to be able to pay the left tackle position that much once you sign Brock Purdy. So I think George Kittle is another guy. So you're right. Those uncomfortable conversations are going to be had in the offseason because of, what they're going to have to pay Purdy. It seems like they're going to pay him, market value for a quarterback that has performed the way he's performed over the last couple of years. And that's going to change the dynamic of their roster and what it looks like. And you're right. I think Debo is going to be at the top of the list in terms of decisions that they're going to have to make in terms of what they're going to do there.
On the Rams side of this, if you're listening to this show, You don't need me to tell you what Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua did against the Bills last week. Cooper Kupp as well. Like Cooper Kupp quietly coming in like third or fourth in that conversation, despite having a 92-yard day with a touchdown. But Eric, we've talked about this before. Skill players and quarterbacks get all the credit, but I can't help but notice Steve Avila and Rob Havenstein have been back on the field together for 2 weeks now. They've been, they've been healthy. They've been hurt. They haven't been on the field together. This Rams offensive line hasn't been a cohesive group of starters for most of this year. And now as they round into good form, they've won their last 2 games. I mean, is it that simple? Is this offensive line healthy enough for the stretch run?
I think it's that simple, and that's the one thing to watch for in this game on Thursday. No sacks against the Bills, the first team that was able to keep the Bills from getting a sack during the game. And so when you have that, Stafford's going to cook. And we saw that 320 passing yards and leading the Rams to 44 points and ultimately a win over one of the best teams in the league. So going into this game, Alaric Jackson, their left tackle, is questionable with a knee injury. So now you're kind of back to wondering what that offensive line is going to look like if he's unable to play on Thursday. Are they going to be able to consistently get a push in the run game? Are they going to be able to protect Stafford enough so he can go out there and get it going again with Puka and Cooper Kupp? And so, now you have another question mark in terms of that offensive line and what it's going to look like without potentially their blindside protector going into this matchup.
It's been a tough season for both teams, but they're both mathematically there. I've said it a few times. If there's a team that can dig out of a hole like the Niners have been in, it's the Niners. And now you get a division game on Thursday night, one of the best rivalries in the league over the last few years. Winner keeps their hopes alive to challenge Seattle for the division. Loser, not looking so great. I mean, I shouldn't need to sell that one to you. It's going to be a fantastic game on Thursday night. Late window on Fox. You're going to be up here in LA at SoFi Stadium for Buccaneers at Chargers. Not a huge game stakes wise for LA. They look comfortably locked into a wild card, but a big chance for them to prove themselves, just continuing to get resume wins for people that might doubt them. And then obviously Tampa Bay is locked in one of the tightest division races in the NFL right now with Atlanta. I'm curious for what you're looking for, but I'm going to tell you something that really jumped off the page at me. And that's that Justin Herbert has been sacked more than all but 3 quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 6 weeks. 2 of those guys are very understandable. Caleb Williams and Will Levis take a boatload of sacks. Patrick Mahomes has been dealing with a revolving door at left tackle. I did not expect to look up and see Justin Herbert getting beat to hell like this. Eric, what can the Chargers do to fix that?
I think that one of the reasons you're seeing that is they haven't been able to run the football as effectively as they ran it earlier in the year. And that's because, J.K. Dobbins has been out. He's done for the year with a knee injury or on IR right now. And the guys that have come in for him haven't been as effective, which means that Justin has had to throw the ball a little bit more than maybe Jim Harbaugh would like, and kind of putting himself in harm's way. Because of that, he's dealing with an injury this week. He has a leg contusion and he has an ankle sprain. Did not practice on Wednesday. He's day to day. And so that's going to be something we're going to monitor. Is he going to be able to get back on the field this week? And if he does get back on the field, how are they going to protect him? Are they going to run play action? Are they going to lean into the running game a little bit more than they have in the last couple of weeks? Because as you said, he can't continue to take those hits on a week-by-week basis and make it into the postseason and still be effective.
I don't think he gets the credit he probably deserves for just being a tough son of a gun. I mean, I think back to, I think it was 2022 when he tore his rib cartilage in week 2 of the season against Kansas City and played through it. And he is day to day. He is questionable. I personally, and this has the potential to age really poorly, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume he's going to find a way to be out there.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, he's one of the toughest quarterbacks out there. And because of his demeanor, I don't think people see that in him. And also, you got to think about who he followed as that starter. Philip River never missed a game. And so that was kind of the standard that was set in terms of that franchise that he has to kind of, match and live up to when you talk about legacy and a guy that, like Philip Rivers that just kind of played through, all different sorts of injuries, played with a torn ACL in the postseason. And I think he's been able to match that in terms of his toughness. And you're right. I do expect that he'll be out there on Sunday.
Typically, we say cross-conference games are, I mean, every game matters, but they're not as important as division games or even conference games because it just doesn't apply for tiebreakers. This feels like a sneaky big game for Tampa Bay. I mean, they are 3-point underdogs, so not necessarily expected to win this game. But if they do, and I'm definitely getting ahead of myself here, I apologize in advance, but their last 3 games, Dallas, Carolina, and New Orleans, all extremely winnable games. If they can manage to pull this off, to come on the road out here and get a win, they've been trading wins and losses. They had a 4-game losing streak earlier in the year. This really feels like it could be a catalyst to Tampa really going on an impressive run to end the year.
Yeah, I think so, Dave. And I think it's also a measuring stick game. They're coming in with a 3-game winning streak, but the teams that they beat are a combined 7-32. They won those games by an average of 17 points a contest when you look at the last 3 victories. And so this is a game, if they want to be in the postseason, they're leading the NFC South right now. They're going to have to beat a team like the Chargers if they make it into the playoffs. And so, they have one of the best offenses in the league. They have a pretty good running attack that's gotten better, obviously with rookie Bucky Irving, leading the league in scrimmage yards and Rashad White back there as well. Baker's doing his thing, 28 touchdown throws, also has 13 interceptions, which is second in the league. And so you're worried about the turnovers, particularly playing against, Los Angeles Chargers defense that's played well all year. And his first in scoring defense. So that's going to be a matchup that, we watched closely, that Tampa Bay offense led by Baker against that Chargers defense.
It's funny to think about. I agree with you. The Bucs running game being successful since their bye week is a big part of why they've been winning again. Bucky Irving, questionable for this game. He's dealing with a back injury, his back locked up on him against the Raiders. But the Bucs, not only can they turn to Rashad White, they could turn to Sean Tucker, who he hasn't been a big part of the offense for most of the year, but he has proven he's capable of having a 100-yard day. I'm sure the Chargers would love to be having these sorts of problems because you and I have been talking about this for a couple of weeks of when you lose J.K. Dobbins, it's slim pickings on the Chargers depth chart. The Bucs are over here with like 4 guys to choose from.
Yeah, you're right. I really feel like they need Gus Edwards to emerge as the guy that's going to carry that offense. They have some younger backs that have they've leaned into a little bit, but we talked about the fumbling issues and that cropped up and hurt them early on a few weeks ago. So I really feel like Gus as a veteran has to kind of grab hold of the reins and carry that offense from a rushing perspective. You look at Tampa Bay, having that 3-pronged approach in terms of their running back room bodes well for them. But the Chargers are a team that wants to run the football with offensive coordinator Greg Roman. And so one of those guys has to merge. And I really feel like Gus is the guy that has to do it.
It's going to be a big weekend for LA football. Eric Williams will be on hand, like I said, at SoFi to cover it all. Make sure you're keeping up with him on foxsports.com and Fox Sports app. Just an educated guess, but we might be checking in with you when that one's over, Eric. I appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Let's get into the Super Six presented by DraftKings. If you don't play the Super Six, what are we even doing? It's December, y'all. Head over to foxsports.com or the Fox Sports app. It's really straightforward. You make 6 picks. If you hit them all, you can win big. 6 bets, spreads, over-unders, team and player performances on Sunday. Pick 6 of them. You can win a lot of money. It's really fun. It's a great way to keep track of all the action on a Sunday. It gives you rooting interest in a lot of different stuff. As always, I will try to help you. Please don't remind me of whether or not I've been successful in the past. It's a new week. Like every coach says, we're just trying to go 1-0. And I think I'm going to do it this week with the prop of who will finish with the most receiving yardage between Cincinnati's Jamar Chase, Dallas's CeeDee Lamb, Washington's Terry McLaurin, or Philadelphia's A.J. Brown. And I'm just going to go with my gut here. Maybe it's just recency bias. I'm going to rock with Jamar Chase after watching what he did to a fully healthy Dallas secondary, by the way. Good players on that Dallas defense. Jamar Chase did not care as he went for 177 against the Cowboys on Monday night. And I'm just going to say he does it again. And I don't have a great stat to back this up. Well, Tennessee's defense has been solid for being a 3-win team all year. Their pass defense isn't bad. My thing is, though, they're bottom 10 in sacks. They're bottom 3rd in pressure rate. They don't generate a lot of pressure. They also don't blitz a lot. So I think Joe Burrow is going to have time to maneuver and stand in the pocket and do all the fun stuff that he does and find Jamar Chase downfield. On top of that, I think Joe and Jamar are just kind of pissed off about everything, about the way the season's gone, about the fact that Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson and T. Higgins all need deals. Like, I think they're mad. I think Joe Burrow wants to feed his guys the football, if nothing else, to send a message to the Bengals front office, let alone win football games. So I think Joe's just going to throw the ball at Jamar Chase as often as he can. He hasn't had a back-to-back 100-yard performance this season. He hasn't gone back-to-back games with 100 yards. I think that changes on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans. Lock it in. Now it's time for the NFL on Fox pod prop. But first, do you have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/ftball. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns this season, and this week, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Download the app and use promo code GAMETIME. That's code GAMETIME when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. And the crown is about to be mine with this anytime touchdown bet this week. Because look, Derrick Henry had scored a touchdown in 11 straight weeks heading into that Monday night game against the Chargers a couple weeks ago. 11 straight weeks with a touchdown. He's now gone 2 straight games without finding the end zone. Didn't score against the Chargers, didn't score against the Eagles. You think Baltimore is really going to let that stand in a game against the lowly New York Giants? Giants have allowed 6 rushing touchdowns in their last 3 games. Dexter Lawrence is injured, so there's not as much in the middle of that defensive front as there used to be. New York is allowing an average of 123 rushing yards per game since their bye week. Baltimore is going to move the ball. They always move the ball. They'll definitely do it against the Giants. And when they get down into the red zone and the goal line, you think they don't want Derrick Henry trying to keep pace with Saquon Barkley? He's absolutely going to get goal line touches. He's going to score a touchdown. He has to score a touchdown. I can't imagine Derrick Henry going a month in between touchdowns with the season that he's having. Anytime touchdown, Derrick Henry, minus 300? Yeah, I'd say based on the odds, they agree with me. I'll take it. All right, we're almost done with the show, but as always, we got one last bit of business, and that's the hurry up offense. There's 8 more games we haven't touched on yet this week. We're going to get you out of here. We're not ignoring anybody. We're going to talk at least a little bit. We're going to try to give you something interesting about the rest of the games on the schedule, because it was tough for a couple. I'm not going to lie. There are some less than ideal matchups on the week 15 schedule, but undaunted, we press on. We will give you a tidbit about every matchup left. 8 more games on the schedule. We'll do it as quickly as we can. My producers have given me 2 minutes on the clock. And we're going to start this thing off with the Chiefs at the Browns. Cleveland has 13 giveaways since Jameis Winston took over. Who's surprised? They'd be leading the league at that rate if he'd started every game. One game with him as the starter with no turnovers. Maybe with a couple interceptions, maybe the Chiefs can finally win a game by multiple possessions. Jets at Jags, two mathematically eliminated teams. I don't know what to say, except Mac Jones has started 3 games and has yet to throw a touchdown. It's bleak in Jacksonville. Cowboys at Panthers. I kind of love this one, to be honest. Carolina at home is favored. It's the first time they've been favored to win a game since week 15 of 2022. 2 years to the week since the last time they were favored to win a game. Sam Darnold was still their quarterback. Big moment for the Panthers. Dolphins at Texans. Houston can clinch the AFC South with a win against Miami and a Colts loss in Denver. That's what you need to know there. Speaking of, Colts at Broncos, we touched on it briefly, but I would just like to say Indy is 1-6 against teams that are above 500. Last time they beat a team above 500 was the Justin Fields Steelers way back in September. Patriots at Cardinals. I could have guessed this based on the way Cardinals seasons have gone, but it's pretty wild. Kyler Murray, 8-23 in games in week 11 or later. It's the 3rd worst mark since the merger. It's a weird stat, but I kind of think it matters. Cardinals need to prove they can play late in the year. Bears at Vikings. Man, the Bears were so good last time they played Minnesota. All I have to say is based on last week, they got Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers. I'm worried the Bears don't win another game in this 2024 season. Let's wrap it up. Falcons at Raiders Monday night. Looks like it should be a game that gets Atlanta back on track with this losing streak, but I'll just say it one more time. It's nothing personal against Aiden O'Connell, but man, I hope Desmond Ridder gets to play this game against his old team. It gets me fired up. I would love to see it personally. See if Des Ridder can stick it to his old Falcons team as they try to get right heading in to, or try to reach the playoffs, I should say. Yes, I am drumming up interest in a week 15 Falcons Raiders game. That is absolutely what I am here to do. I hope you're a sicko like me. I hope you'll be watching, because I will be. That's Monday though. I'll be here watching all day Sunday, and we will be here on the other side of the weekend to catch you up on everything. I mean, we went through it all. You know what's at stake. You know who's playing. So many fun games to look forward to. We will have news, insight, analysis, hot takes, you name it, from all of the above, all the big games. It is a huge weekend in the NFL, and when it's over, we will be here to catch you up on all of it. I can't wait already. Go find us if you haven't. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We will be here for you on Monday to break down why your team is the best in the league and everyone else is terrible. Or maybe we'll help you understand why it's okay. Your team can still bounce back. Whatever. There's so much to look forward to. I'm amped. I hope y'all have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. As always, I appreciate it so much.